The coffee cup left Oralia Bancroft's hand before anyone could process what was happening. A full arc of scalding liquid sliced through the air and splashed across Judge Frank Caprio's robe, soaking the sleeve, the papers, even the front edge of the bench. Before story tell us were you watching from a stunned gasp ripped through the courtroom. Officer Terrence Washington surged forward, instinctively reaching for the cuffs at his belt. But Judge Caprio, 80 years old, steady as stone, did not recoil. He did not shout. He simply blinked away the sting of the heat, looked at the young woman who'd thrown it, and said something no one in the courtroom would ever forget. "Officer Washington, wait." Everything stopped. Washington froze mid-stride. Orlia's hand remained suspended in the air, fingers curled where the handle had been. Her attorney, Preston Harrington IV, looked as if all the air had vanished from his lungs. And in the gallery, her father, Montgomery Bancroft III, stared in horror, his empire cracking in real time. Judge Caprio dabbed at the dripping sleeve with a handkerchief handed quickly to him by his clerk. "Miss Bancroft," he said quietly, "do you have anything else you'd like to throw?" Orlia's lips parted, but nothing came out. "Because if you're done," Caprio continued, "I have something to say." But before he delivered the response that would later be viewed over 50 million times, he wanted the record and the public clear on who exactly stood before him. "Madam Clerk," Caprio said, "read the charges." She rose, voice unwavering despite the chaos seconds earlier. Case 2025 CR 0156, City of Providence vs. Oralia Montgomery Bancroft. Charges: vehicular manslaughter, DUI resulting in death, leaving the scene of a fatal collision, reckless operation, and failure to render aid. A low wave of murmurs rolled through the gallery. This was not a traffic violation. This was a death. Caprio leaned forward. On September 14th of last year, at approximately 1:47 a.m., the defendant was operating a Porsche 911 at 87 miles per hour in a 35 zone. Her blood alcohol content recorded at the hospital was 0.17, more than twice the legal limit. He paused. She ran a red light at Hope Street and Blackstone Boulevard and struck a Honda Civic driven by 29-year-old Michael David Reeves, an elementary school music teacher. He lowered his voice. "Mr. Reeves died at the scene." Not a breath stirred. "After the collision," Caprio continued, "Miss Bancroft did not stop. She did not call emergency services. She fled the scene and drove to her father's estate. When she arrived, she told a security guard, quoting directly from the police report, 'Handle it.'" Her attorney rose. "Your Honor, those alleged—" "Sit down, counselor," Caprio said without raising his voice. "I'm reading from sworn testimony submitted as evidence." Then came the part that dismantled the Bancroft family's carefully curated secrecy. Caprio picked up a separate document. "I always research the individuals who stand before me. Miss Bancroft's history is educational." He read, 2017 Miami, hit-and-run allegations. Pedestrian sustained fractures. No charges filed due to witness inconsistencies. 2019 Manhattan, assault on nightclub employee. Charges dismissed after a substantial donation. 2021 Southampton, DUI causing serious injury to a cyclist. Settled privately for $500,000. Victim signed a non-disclosure agreement. He set the papers down. 3 incidents, 3 victims, 0 consequences. A pattern money has erased again and again. Orlia's voice broke the silence, sharp and defensive. "Those were resolved. You can't use." "I can consider patterns of behavior," Caprio replied, "especially when the pattern is harm someone, pay them off, and walk away unchanged." Harrington rose again. "Your Honor, counselor," Caprio said, "this isn't a debate. Sit." He turned to Orlia. "You've lived in a world where accountability is something for other people. But on September 14th, the person you harmed didn't survive long enough to be bought off." Then he invited the person whose voice mattered most. "Is Mrs. Elena Reeves present?" A young woman rose from the gallery, holding a framed photo of her husband. She walked to the podium with the delicate steadiness of someone carrying grief that had remade her bones. "My name is Alina Reeves," she said. "Michael was my husband." Caprio nodded gently. "Tell us about him." Alina spoke of Michael's love for music, the way he stayed late tutoring children who couldn't afford lessons, how he purchased instruments for students in need, how teaching wasn't his job, it was his joy. She described the phone call he made that night at 11:30 p.m., he said. "This is going to be the best year yet." Her voice shook. "He never made it home." She lifted the framed photograph, a smiling father with a guitar, daughter on one knee, infant son in his arm. "My daughter is 3, Alina whispered. "Every night she asks when Daddy's coming home from his trip. She doesn't understand that death is permanent." Her voice hardened, and Miss Bancroft drove home and told someone to handle it. When Alina returned to her seat, the courtroom was dead silent. Caprio turned to Oralia. "Do you have anything to say to Mrs. Reeves?" Oralia exhaled loudly, disbelief etched across her face. "I said I'm sorry. What else do people want from me?" Alina's voice cut through the air. "You have never apologized." "Not once." Oralia rolled her eyes. "Fine, I'm sorry, happy now." The courtroom winced. Caprio removed his glasses slowly. "That may be the least sincere apology I've heard in 4 decades. Oralia snapped. "What do you want me to do? Cry?" He came out of nowhere. "You ran a red light at 87 miles per hour, Caprio said. "He had the right of way." Oralia muttered, "Whatever. My father will," and that was when she grabbed the coffee cup. The rest, the throw, the gasp, the silence, became viral history. After the coffee hit him, after he wiped his sleeve, after Officer Washington froze between orders, Judge Caprio delivered the line heard across the world. "I want to thank you," he said to Oralia. She stared. "Because you showed this entire courtroom exactly who you are." The internet would echo that sentence for weeks. Then came the consequences, real ones. "Officer Washington," Caprio said, "you may now approach the defendant." Washington stepped forward. "Miss Bancroft, you are now charged with assault on a judicial officer, a felony. Your bail is revoked." Oralia gasped. "You can't, my father will." "No," Caprio said firmly. "Your father is why you believe you're untouchable. Today you learn otherwise." Montgomery Bancroft jumped to his feet. "Your Honor, I demand." Caprio didn't even raise his voice. "Sit down or I will hold you in contempt. And considering the evidence tampering charges being filed against you this afternoon, I doubt you want another felony added." Montgomery sat. Oralia was handcuffed. 3 weeks later, facing irrefutable evidence, she pleaded guilty. Her father entered his own plea for obstruction and tampering. Their sentencing took place on the same day. Montgomery first. "You taught your daughter," Caprio said, "that consequences are for other people, that problems can be solved with money, that victims can be erased." He sentenced him to 2 years in state prison. Then came Oralia. "You took a life," Caprio said. "You fled, you lied, you assaulted a judge in open court. Prison is only part of what justice requires." Judge Harrington read the sentence slowly, each line carrying the weight of the devastation Savannah Reeves had caused. First came the headline consequence: 12 years in state prison, a term that would take away the rest of her 20s and the beginning of her 30s. She would not simply serve time, she would grow up behind bars. Parole eligibility after 8 years meant there was a distant possibility of release, but only if she proved she had truly changed. Then the judge delivered the blow that made Savannah visibly flinch: a lifetime revocation of her driver's license. She would never legally drive again, not because of punishment alone, but because the court believed she should never hold that level of responsibility after what she had done. The financial penalty was equally staggering: $2.4 million in restitution to the Reeves family, to be paid over the rest of her life, ensuring she carried the weight of her actions long after prison. The judge added deeply personal requirements: a mandatory letter every month to Alina Reeves, the victim she nearly killed, forcing Savannah to confront her actions repeatedly. And finally, no access to family money and a yearly victim impact course, stripping away privilege and replacing it with accountability, reflection, and consequence. "If you attempt to evade any part of this," Caprio said, "I will personally ensure your parole is denied." Orlia cried, not out of empathy but shock. Yet the story didn't end there. Years later, a transformation in the years that followed the sentencing. The ripples of that courtroom moment continued to move quietly through Rhode Island. Montgomery Bancroft, once the swaggering patriarch who believed wealth could bend any system, emerged from his own reckoning profoundly changed. After completing his sentence, he lived with an intentional humility. No interviews, no statements, no public redemption tour. Instead, he channeled his remaining fortune into something that mattered. The Michael Reeves Music Education Foundation, endowed with $50 million. It served children across the state, offering free instruments and lessons in the name of the man his daughter had taken from the world. Bancroft never sought credit. He simply wrote checks and disappeared from the spotlight. He never again tried to influence a courtroom. Orlia's transformation was slower, harder. Her first mandatory letters to Elena Reeves were stiff, formulaic, the words of someone fulfilling a requirement rather than revealing truth. But prison has a way of stripping excuses. By her third year, her tone shifted. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm learning to understand the damage I caused. I know what I stole from you." Elena read every one. And on the 25th letter, she finally responded, "I still hate what you did, but I see that you're trying. Keep trying." Those two words, "keep trying," became the hinge on which Orlia's life turned. Meanwhile, Michael's daughter Sophie, now 7, played violin with a tenderness that made her mother cry. Her lessons were funded, unknowingly, by the man who had once tried to shield his own child from accountability. Her younger brother, Marcus, just 5, tapped out piano melodies with a rhythm that startled even his instructors. The Reeves children thrived through programs born from tragedy, yet shaped by repentance. And somewhere inside the Rhode Island Women's Correctional Facility, the one surrogate young woman who had thrown coffee at a judge now sat at a small metal desk, writing her monthly letter, slowly, thoughtfully, honestly. Not to check a box, but to keep becoming someone better. Years later, when asked about the case, Judge Caprio simply said, "I wasn't trying to go viral. I was trying to teach accountability." But the story didn't truly end with sentencing or even with transformation. The years ahead held threads none of them could yet see, threads quietly pulling lives back toward one another. On a quiet spring afternoon, Elena Reeves sat at her kitchen table sorting mail when she found a new envelope from the Rhode Island Women's Correctional Facility. Orlia's handwriting had become steadier over the years, less desperate, more human. Elena placed it aside, intending to read it later, but beneath it lay something unexpected. A second envelope, cream-colored, stamped from a private P.O. box. It was from Montgomery Bancroft. Inside was a short letter, just 3 sentences, but they trembled with the weight of a man who had run out of excuses. "I cannot undo what my daughter did, but I can spend what remains of my life trying to honor the man she took from you. If you'll allow it, I'd like to meet, not for forgiveness but for truth." Elena's hands shook. Somewhere Sophie practiced violin in the next room, the same melody her father once played. And miles away, Orlia sat at a metal desk, writing her next letter without knowing any of this. The past wasn't finished yet, and neither was the future. This all generated not for legal,